Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond Conviction. This video we will be discussing the topic of, can I get into the United States of America with a conviction? But before we start, if you want to receive notification of more content regarding life after receiving a conviction, then please subscribe and follow this channel for notification on more videos that will be coming up in the future. So the reason I wanted to raise this topic is because it's something I have experienced myself. So a couple of years back, myself, my wife were planning a summer holiday with our two children, and we were trying to think of places to go. And both our children adore Disney. They love theme parks, they love water parks. And we went to Mallorca a few times. We wanted something a bit more special. So we decided to go to Florida, to Disney World. And yeah, and the wheels were in motion, the money was put away. So we were just looking for the right resort to stay in and flights and everything else. We found the perfect deal and we were getting on with booking it. So I just left that to the missus and thought more of it because, you know, she rules the roost. Anyways, when I was looking at like putting an itinerary together, I come across the fact that you can't just turn up like you can in European countries. You can't just turn up to America. You need to have relevant paperwork. And as UK citizens, you need something called the ESTA, which is electronic something travel authorization. Because the UK, amongst a good load of other countries, you can travel to the US for tourism for up to 90 days without a visa. So I put the wheels in motion and started to get the ESTAs applied for. And they cost about, I think it's around £10 thereabouts, give or take a few quid per ESTA. And you need one to either enter or transit into the US. And this is where I hit a bit of a stumbling block. So I didn't realise that travelling to countries with a conviction can be made difficult until this very moment. The very moment being when I was putting the wheels in motion to go to the US for a family holiday. And yeah, like I say, most people forget about their convictions, you know, once it's depending on what they are, obviously. And a lot of the time they're just dead and buried. And unless you're seeking to do, you know, certain employment, which you can't do with convictions, other than that, you tend to just move on, which you should do. But when I was applying for an ESTA, this is when I realised it would be a problem. So I'm just going to show you the ESTA application form that you need to fill in if you want to go to America. So this is the ESTA application page. So Electronic System for Travel Authorization. So like I say, anyone who's in the UK can travel to the US for up to 90 days on one of these. So it's got the basic application information. So you populate your surname, first name, passport number, other passport details, your country of citizenship, national identification number, which would be your national insurance number for the UK, your gender, your date of birth, where you were born, and you've got other, so if you've got any other nationalities, you put that on here. Your email address, so you can receive correspondence regarding your application. Then you've got personal information, such as, have you been known by any other names? Have you got a passport from another country or an ID card from another country? Your contact information, so your address, city, province, country, etc. Social media, not too sure why they ask you for that. And ask you if you're part of the CBP Global Entry, which I believe it allows you to enter the US willy-nilly as much as you want if you're part of that global entry scheme. Don't know too much about it though, but I think that's the gist of it. Your parents' names as well. I believe that's just so they can match your passport and other things and birth certificates or whatever. But anyway, so this is the section that is most important. Your eligibility questions. So question 1 asks if you've ever been diagnosed with any diseases or if you are a current, substance addict. So if it's yes, you're meant to put yes, and if it's not applicable, you put no. Question 2, have you been arrested or convicted for a crime that resulted in serious damage to property or serious harm to another person or government authority? See, that is the question, and it seems very specific, and it's worded in such a way where when I first seen it, I was like, well, no, that's a no. But that means something, it means something else, and that's why I wanted to put this video out there, just so you don't get pulled into the same trap I did. But we'll come back to that. Question 3, have you violated any laws regarding drug possession, drug distribution? That's usually the very problematic one. If you've been pinged for any drug offences in the past, you will struggle to get into the US. So if you have such offences, I would advise you contact an immigration lawyer. And this question 4, do you seek to engage or have you engaged in terrorism, espionage, genocide? I mean, who's going to tick yes to that? It's quite seriously, who's going to tick yes to that? Apart from the most honest person ever. But anyway. Then there's other questions, as you can see. Have you ever been denied a visa? Have you ever overstayed? Have you, anything immigration, US immigration related, any sort of penalties you've got, if you've been deported, whatever, you take yes to those. But it's question 2 that I'm most interested in regarding have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime involving serious harm to government authority, to a person. And that's what's unclear on when you fill out this questionnaire. The thing is, this doesn't go to an immigration officer of any kind. This is automated. So if you were to tick yes to any of these questions, it would tell you to go and apply for a visa. So like I was saying, I was filling these out for myself, my wife and my children. And question 2, when I read it, I was thinking, well, sweet. I've only ever been done for money laundering and, a couple, an assault here and there and threatening behaviour, whatever it is. So I thought I was pretty sweet. I'll be able to get into the US, no problem, happy days, But no, not at all. Because I get a bit curious and I was researching, US immigration, because I thought, surely drugs can't be the only thing that keeps you out of the US. And I come across something on the US immigration law page, and it's a term that's used by the US government and the Custom and Border Patrol Service in the US, and that term is called crimes involving moral turpitude. It just seems like a government invented word. Doesn't mean a whole lot. But that question 2 is effectively meaning, have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude? Now, crimes involving moral turpitude range quite vastly. And there's some crimes that you'd think, wow, that shouldn't be a disqualifying crime. And there's crimes that you look that aren't disqualifying that you think, wow, that if you've ever been done for that, you shouldn't be able to get into this country, And it's quite bizarre. But I would like to direct you to the unlock.org page, which I find very, very useful. And I urge any of you guys listening to have a read of it. Anything conviction related, you can find it in there. So, crimes involving moral turpitude. So this unlock page summarises it quite nicely. So moral turpitude is a legal concept in the United States. It doesn't really exist anywhere else. It classed as CIMT. So is your crime a CIMT? Does it involve moral turpitude? A phrase that no one has ever used apart from the US immigration people. So this page on Unlock, it doesn't have all offences, but it has, most. So we'll give you a few examples. If you've been done for a fray, that's not a crime involving moral turpitude. Arson or attempted arson, that is. Assisting an offender, that's a crime involving moral turpitude, such as benefit fraud, blackmail, bigamy, that's a type of fraud, I think. Brothel keeping, yeah. Burglary is, as you can imagine, terrible thing. And anything murder-wise, conspiracy to commit murder, obviously that is an offence that the US don't want people coming in with. And death by dangerous driving is. And there's a whole host of, dirty offences regarding children and offences against women and things. As you can imagine, rightly so, they are terrible crimes and the US don't want people like that there. Harassment apparently isn't. There you go, hijacking, so twalk, and other more dirty crimes. And what's odd, kidnapping is not a crime involving moral turpitude, unless it was grave kidnapping, torturing people and stuff. But that surprised me, that kidnapping is not a crime involving moral turpitude. So there's good host of offences there. Threats to kill, that's one. I thought that would come under harassment, but no, it's an offence on its own. But yeah, so that's about 80 offences that are summarised if they are crimes involving moral turpitude or not. So the offences I was convicted of, so common assault, that wasn't a crime involving moral turpitude. That was just a minor thing from years ago. Money laundering, it doesn't appear on there, on the unlock summary that I showed you. So I had to do a bit of digging and actually find my offence name, my real offence name, and how it translated into US law. And I couldn't find that too easy. So I did speak to an immigration lawyer that deals with this sort of thing. And once I forwarded him my police check certificate and things like that I had to get for work and travelling to other countries for work, he said, yes, that money laundering offence is a crime involving moral turpitude. So in theory, I am what's called inadmissible to the United States, meaning because I have been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, I'm not eligible to go to the United States, which I thought was, tragic. I can't believe, seriously. When I was explaining to the immigration, but my convictions they were spent ages ago. But this Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, the concept of spent and unspent convictions doesn't mean anything in the United States. So what I had to do was, he told me to apply for a visa. I said, what's the point? I'm not eligible. What's the point in applying for a visa? They're not going to give me one. But he was actually explaining it to me, and there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. So here's a little hint and tip for you guys listening. I applied for a visa, so I had to fill out the visa application, get a PCC, which is a police clearance certificate. So it's basically a certificate that you get from ARCO online from the police, and it has a list of all your convictions on it. And it has like your mug shots and any caution, like official cautions, any matters that are lying on file, stuff like that. It's all on there. So that's part of the application. The application costs about £130. And so, yeah, I booked an appointment. I had to go down to the embassy in London. All this just so I could go on holiday with my family. So I went to the embassy in London for my appointment, and I had my passport. I had to bring a few more passport photographs, because that gets, if you were to be issued a visa, your photograph gets imprinted onto it. I had to bring a birth certificate, my police record certificate, and a few other bits and pieces, proof of address, that sort of thing. And went for my appointment, and the US Embassy in London is like Fort Knox. The security is tight in there. So if you ain't got an appointment, you're not getting past the front door, basically. So it was quite daunting. It was all very, official. And my number was called, and I had to go speak to this lady who was behind what looked like bulletproof glass. So I gave her my passport and my birth certificate and the confirmation of my appointment and my application. And she took my fingerprints. She took a picture of me again. Even though I brought pictures, she wanted the actual picture. And she's looked at my passport. She went, well, you're British. I was like, yes. You're applying for a tourism visa. Why? You don't need one. I was like, I do. I was like, I can't get one of those ESTAs. She was like, why? I said, because I've got convictions. She was like, oh, okay. Did you bring your police certificate? I was like, I did, yes, here it is. She had a little flick through it. And she was, going, okay, Because they can actually make a decision there and then if they want to grant you a visa or not. So she's disappeared, and then she's come back a couple minutes later, and she said, right, so your visa application is on hold for now, and it's going to go under review by a more senior immigration officer. You'll hear from us within, a couple of weeks. I was like, okay, cool. I was starting to get a bit itchy about it, because the holiday, we put deposits on it, but we haven't fully paid it off because we were waiting for the outcome of this. And so, yeah, got out of London, went back home, and just played the waiting game for a few weeks. I'll say a few weeks. It was actually a bit less than that. It was about 11 days. And I get a big envelope from the embassy via courier that I had to sign for. And inside was a letter, and I had my passport, because they keep your passport and all your paperwork. Like, you have to bring originals. You can't just bring photocopies. And I had all my paperwork in, apart from my birth certificate. I don't know where that went, but it's a public record. It's only a few quid. I wasn't bothered. And normally, if you get a visa, what happens is they'll put it in your passport. So it's like glued into your passport. So I took my passport out and there was no visa in it. So I kind of knew I didn't get one. So I took the letter out, and it basically stated that my application had been refused due to her having crimes involving moral turpitude in the UK. I was like, behave. Like, have I really? You can't reject me for a visa application. It was ages ago, these offences, and to be quite frank, I'm quite lightly convicted. But somebody could get done for kidnapping. They don't even need a visa. They can just go to, you know what I mean? They just go to the US. It wasn't making sense. But anyway, so I was devastated. So I was like, right, we ain't going to Florida. We're gonna have to plan something else. And as you can imagine, the kids were devastated because we were bigging it up to them. We were saying, yeah, we're going to Florida. Disneyland's going to be amazing. And we were all looking forward to it. You know, it was a holiday of a lifetime. And, well, the missus wasn't comfortable with just going with the kids on her own that far away. So we just settled for Mallorca again. But yeah, we were absolutely devastated. But I'd like to also make you aware, in that letter, there was a recommendation, and it said, recommendation for application of a waiver of ineligibility. And what that is, yes, I've been rejected, my visa's been rejected, but the door's not being totally closed in my face. I can apply for a waiver of ineligibility. And what that means is the visa refusal's more administrative. So they just see, oh, he's got a crime involving moral turpitude, rejected, bang. That's basically what's just happened. But because the amount of time that's gone past and the fact that it's only a tourism visa, I'm not planning, to live there permanently, the immigration officer recommended that I apply for a waiver. And the idea of this waiver is, once you have a waiver of ineligibility, if it is given to you, whatever your ineligibility is, whether that's, you've got a certain disease, or if you're me, being convicted of a couple of offences, you can waive that ineligibility for that visa application only, which basically means if that gets waived, they will give you a visa. So that is actually still underway right now, because with the work I do need to go to the US for conferences and things. So my application for my waiver of ineligibility is still underway, and it's been underway for over a year now. So part of that application, you need to get a lot of information, so court records, evidence that you're not a risk to the US, prove that you've rehabilitated yourself. So I've handed in employment references, university certificates, proof of home ownership, proof of a stable life, anything to strengthen the application. Because what happens is it will get scrutinized by the Department of Homeland Security, and they're going to ultimately say, can we, considering this person is ineligible to come to the US, can we open the door for him? And if you have to really demonstrate that they should let you in, and there'll be no problem when you get there. And I believe personally I've done that. I've proved, in my application for this waiver, that I am fully offence-free these days. I'm not in amongst crime anymore. It's been many, many, many years since. And I've put a lot of effort into sort of steering myself away from that sort of life by going to university, holding down a job, buying a home, having a bit of a stable life. So that's still underway, and I will, once I get the outcome of that, I will share that with you. But yeah, so can you go to the US if you've got a conviction? It depends. Depends on the conviction you have, and it depends on the punishment you received. So I do hope this video was of some use. So of course, if you are traveling to the US and you have a bit of, history, you got convictions, you've been arrested before, whatever, there is resources out there that will explain your eligibility. But the rule is, when in doubt, just apply for a visa and take it from there, like what I'm doing. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that was, like I say, useful. And yeah, just keep an eye out for some more content like this. So yeah, thank you very much, and peace and love, guys.